I should have realized the moment he walked through the door that everything was about to change. The diner was practically deserted, just the usual late-night crowd, nursing lukewarm coffee and drowning in their regrets. I'd been pulling double shifts at Rosie's for 3 months straight, putting away every single tip, every crumpled dollar, just trying to dig myself out of the hole my mom's medical bills had landed me in. The fluorescent lights above me hummed that tired, familiar tune, and my feet ached in shoes I couldn't afford to replace. It was 11:47 p.m. when the bell above the door gave a little jingle. I looked up from wiping down table 6, and the words I was about to say, "We're closing soon," just died in my throat. The man who walked in wasn't just tall. He just took up all the space in the room. Everything about him whispered, danger wrapped in designer clothes, a charcoal suit that probably cost more than what I paid in rent. The way he moved, like a predator who had never once known fear, the cold, calculating look in his dark eyes as they swept across the room. His jaw looked like it had been carved out of stone, his black hair perfectly styled, even at this late hour. And there was just something about the set of his shoulders that made my instincts scream, "Run!" But it wasn't him that made my heart skip a beat. It was the child, a little boy no older than 5, clinging to the man's hand. He was wearing pajamas under a small navy blue jacket with tiny stars, and he had sneakers on that lit up with every hesitant step he took. His face was beautiful in that heartbreaking way some children are, with dark curls falling across his forehead and eyes that were just too old for someone so young. Eyes that looked so empty. "We need a table," the man said. His voice was low, definitive, not a request. I glanced at the clock. "Sir, we're—" His gaze locked onto mine, and I felt the weight of it like it was something physical. "Please." That last word cost him something. I could see it in the slight tension in his jaw, the way his hand tightened protectively on the boy's shoulder. Something twisted in my chest. Of course. I grabbed 2 menus, leading them to the corner booth, the one by the window where the streetlight painted everything in shades of amber and shadow. "Can I get you something to drink?" The man sat down, gently guiding the boy to slide in beside him. The child moved mechanically like a doll being positioned. He stared at the table, never blinking. Water for me, and warm milk for him. The man's attention never left the boy. There was something desperate in the way he watched that small, silent face. Something broken. Coming right up. I went back to the counter, my hands shaking slightly as I poured their drinks. Through the serving window I watched them. The man leaned close to the boy, speaking in a voice too low for me to hear. The child didn't respond. He didn't even look at him. Marco, our cook, came out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. "Those customers?" He followed my gaze and went pale. That's... He grabbed my wrist, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "Dante Volov, you don't know that name?" I shook my head. "Jesus, Sarah, where have you been living? He basically runs half this city. The Volov family. They're..." He made a gesture that said violence, power, everything dark and untouchable. "You don't want to get mixed up with them." My stomach dropped. I looked back at the booth, at the man, Dante, who sat with such rigid control, at the boy who looked like he had been carved from silence. "I'm just serving them coffee, Marco." "Yeah, well, just be careful." I carried the drinks over on a tray, my pulse hammering in my ears. Up close, Dante Volov was even more overwhelming. Sharp cheekbones, a mouth that could have been sensual if it weren't set in such a hard line, and a scar that traced his left eyebrow, pale against his olive skin. "Here you go." I set the water in front of him, and the warm milk in front of the boy, whose small hands remained folded in his lap. "Are you hungry? We have all kinds of things." Dante's jaw clenched. He doesn't do much of anything anymore. The pain in those words was visceral. I should have walked away, taken their order, kept my head down and just survived my shift. But the boy's stillness haunted me, the way he sat there like he'd forgotten how to be a child. Without thinking, I slid into the booth across from them. Dante's eyes snapped to mine. "Dangerous. What are you doing? What's his name?" I asked softly. A pause. "Alexei." Hi, Alexei. I smiled, even though the boy didn't look at me. I'm Sarah. Dante leaned back slightly, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Warning, maybe, or curiosity. He won't respond. He hasn't spoken in 2 years. My heart cracked. What happened? That, Dante said quietly, is not your concern. But the rawness in his voice told me everything. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was drowning. And the child beside him was slipping further away every day. I don't know what got into me. Maybe it was the exhaustion, the late hour, the way the boy's small shoulders seemed to carry the weight of the world. Maybe it was the memory of my own childhood, of the nights my mother sang to me when the world felt too big and too cruel. I started humming softly at first, an old lullaby my grandmother had taught me. The words were in a language I barely remembered, but the melody was embedded deep in my bones. Hush, little one. The stars are watching. Sleep now, love. The night is kind. Dante went very still. What are you doing? I ignored him, letting the melody fill the space between us. And then, barely breathing, I began to sing. The words slipped out in a whisper, ancient and aching and tender. For a long moment, nothing happened. And then Alexei's head turned. Just a fraction. Just enough that those haunted, dark eyes lifted from the table and found my face. I kept singing, my heart thundering so loud I was sure they could both hear it. The boy's lips parted slightly, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe? Or the ghost of whatever he'd been before silence claimed him. When I finished, the diner felt impossibly quiet. Alexei's small hand moved, reaching out to touch the table between us. His fingers traced invisible patterns, and then, so softly I almost missed it, he hummed. Just 2 notes, barely a sound. But Dante Volov looked at me like I just performed a miracle. How did you? His voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw past the armor, saw the father beneath the monster, saw devastation and desperate hope warring in his eyes. I don't know, I whispered. Dante's hand covered his son's, and the tenderness of that gesture made my throat tight. When he looked up at me again, something had shifted. Something dangerous and inevitable and absolutely terrifying. What's your name? He asked. Sarah. Sarah Mitchell? He repeated it slowly, like he was memorizing it, claiming it. Sarah. And in that moment, with the city lights bleeding through the window and a child's small humming in my ears, I felt the ground beneath me shift. I didn't know it yet, but I had just stepped into a world I could never escape. Dante Volov stood, pulling out a wallet that probably held more cash than I made in 6 months. He placed 5 $100 bills on the table. I need you to come work for me, he said, not asking, never asking. My pulse stuttered. What? My son needs you. His eyes held mine, absolute and unyielding. And I always get what I need. He lifted Alexei into his arms, the boy's small head resting against his father's shoulder, and walked toward the door. At the threshold, Dante turned back. I'll be here tomorrow night. Say yes, Sarah, or I'll find another way to make you. The bell chimed as they disappeared into the darkness, and I stood there, frozen, knowing with horrible certainty that my ordinary life had just ended. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Dante Volov's words echoed in my head like a promise and a threat. Asterisk, I'll find another way to make you. Asterisk, the 5 $100 bills sat on my nightstand, accusatory in the pre-dawn darkness. I tried to leave it at the diner, but Marco had shoved it back into my hands with terrified eyes. Don't be stupid, Sarah. You don't refuse money from the Volovs. You don't refuse them anything. Now, as weak sunlight filtered through my apartment's cracked window, I stared at those bills and thought about my mother, about the stack of medical statements that kept growing, the collectors who called daily, the way her voice had sounded small and defeated the last time we spoke. Asterisk, I'm so sorry, baby. I never meant to be such a burden. Asterisk, she wasn't a burden. She was everything, and I was drowning trying to save her. The money on my nightstand could cover this month's minimum payment, maybe even next month's, too. I pressed my palms against my eyes, hating myself for even considering it. working for a mafia boss, because that's what Dante Volov was. No matter how beautiful his son's eyes were, it was insane, dangerous. The kind of decision that got people killed in this city. But Alexei's face wouldn't leave me alone. That broken little boy who hadn't spoken in 2 years, who'd hummed those 2 fragile notes like he was remembering how to be human. What kind of trauma steals a child's voice? What had he witnessed in Dante's world of violence and power? My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My hands shook as I answered. Hello, Sarah Mitchell. That voice, dark velvet wrapped around steel. Dante, I trust you've had time to consider my offer. How did you get my number? A pause that felt like amusement. I own this city, Malaya. Getting your number was the easiest thing I've done this week. The Russian endearment sent an unwanted shiver down my spine. I haven't decided, I said, proud that my voice stayed steady. Then let me help you decide. You're 3 months behind on your mother's oncology bills. St. Catherine's Hospital, room 407, stage 3, correct? The treatment she needs costs approximately $40,000 per month. His words were surgical, precise. Money you don't have. Ice flooded my veins. You researched me. I research everyone who enters my life. No apology in his tone. Your rent is overdue. You have $17 in your checking account. You work 80-hour weeks and still can't keep your head above water. You're drowning, Sarah. And I'm offering you a lifeline. In exchange for what? My voice came out harder than I intended. What exactly do you want from me? I want you to sing to my son. The rawness returned, bleeding through his control. I want you to help him speak again, to help him come back. I'm not a therapist. I'm a waitress who got lucky with one lullaby. It wasn't luck. It was absolute certainty. Alexei hasn't responded to anyone in 2 years. Not the specialists, not the therapists, not me. But last night, he hummed. He looked at you. Do you understand what that means? I closed my eyes, remembering that small, haunted face turning toward me. How much? I whispered. $50,000 a month plus full coverage of your mother's medical expenses. All of them. The number staggered me. That was everything. That was my mother's life. What's the catch? You move into my home. You're available whenever Alexei needs you. Morning, night, whenever he has nightmares or episodes. You try every day to bring my son back. He paused. And you tell no one about this arrangement. No one can know you're connected to me. Why? Because the people who hurt my son are still out there. His voice went lethal. And if they know he's showing signs of recovery, if they know there's someone who can reach him, they'll come for you too. My apartment suddenly felt too small, too exposed. Who hurt him? What happened? That Dante said quietly is what? You'll learn if you say yes. But understand this, Sarah. Once you enter my world, you can't leave unchanged. I'm offering you salvation and damnation in the same breath. Through the phone, I heard a small sound, a child's whimper. Alexei, I asked. He has nightmares every night. The exhaustion in Dante's voice was devastating. He wakes up screaming without sound. And I don't know how to reach him anymore. The whimpering grew louder, more desperate. Sing, I said suddenly. Put the phone near him. Sarah, please. A rustle of movement. Then Dante's voice, distant. Someone wants to talk to you, Sin. I started singing before I could overthink it. The same lullaby from last night. My voice soft and aching as it traveled through the phone line and into whatever nightmare held Alexei captive. I sang about stars and safety, about nights that end and mornings that heal. The whimpering stopped. For a long moment, only breathing filled the line. Then Dante's voice, closer now, rough with something that sounded like breaking. He's reaching for the phone. My heart stuttered. Let him hear me. I sang another verse, then another until I heard the softest sound, that same 2-note hum. Fragile and searching. Hi, Alexei, I whispered. I'm here. You're safe. Silence. Then the phone shifted again, and Dante spoke, his voice transformed. When can you start? I looked at the hospital bills scattered across my coffee table, at the eviction notice taped to my door, at the photograph of my mother on the wall, her smile bright despite the hospital gown, despite everything. I thought about the fear in Marco's eyes when he'd seen Dante, about the warnings, the danger, the very real possibility that I was making a deal with the devil himself. But I also thought about a little boy who'd forgotten how to speak and a father who'd move heaven and earth to find someone who could reach him. Tonight, I heard myself say, I'll come tonight. I'll send a car at 8. The relief in his voice was palpable. Thank you, Sarah. Don't thank me yet, I said. I haven't saved him. No. Dante's response came quiet, weighted with meaning I didn't yet understand. But you've already saved me. The line went dead. I sat in my apartment as morning bled into afternoon, wondering what I'd just agreed to, wondering if the money would be worth whatever pieces of myself I was about to lose. At 7:45 p.m., my phone buzzed with an address. At 7:58, a black Mercedes pulled up outside my building, sleek, expensive, and ominous as a hearse. The driver who emerged wore a suit and an expression that revealed nothing. Miss Mitchell? Mr. Volov is expecting you. I grabbed my bag, my hands trembling, and followed him to the car. As we pulled away from my neighborhood, from everything familiar and safe, I watched the city lights blur past the tinted windows, and wondered if I'd ever see my old life again. The Volov estate wasn't a house. It was a fortress disguised as a mansion, all iron gates and stone walls that seemed designed to keep the world out, or keep something in. As we drove through the entrance, security cameras tracked our movement, and men in dark suits materialized from the shadows. Watching with eyes that missed nothing, my pulse hammered against my throat. The Mercedes curved along a pristine driveway lined with ancient oaks, their branches creating a canopy that blocked out the evening sky. When the house finally came into view, I had to bite back a gasp. It was massive, 3 stories of old-world architecture and modern menace, with floor-to-ceiling windows that glowed like amber eyes in the darkness. Money. This was what real money looked like. Miss Mitchell. The driver opened my door, and I stepped out onto cobblestones that probably cost more than my car. Mr. Volov is waiting in the east wing. I followed him up marble steps, through doors that whispered open on silent hinges. The foyer stole my breath. Vaulted ceilings, a chandelier that dripped crystal light, floors so polished I could see my reflection. Paintings that looked museum quality lined the walls, and everything smelled like leather and expensive cologne, and something darker. Gunpowder, maybe blood. Stop it, I told myself. You're being paranoid. But my instincts screamed otherwise. We walked through corridors that seemed endless, past rooms I glimpsed only briefly. A library with walls of books. A dining room with a table that could seat 20. A parlor with furniture that belonged in a European palace. Everything was beautiful and cold and perfect. Everything felt like a trap here. The driver stopped before a door, knocking twice. Mr. Volov, send her in. That voice, even through wood, it made something in my stomach tighten. The driver opened the door and gestured me forward. I stepped inside, and he closed it behind me with a soft click that sounded too much like finality. The room was a study, all dark wood and leather, with shelves lined with books in languages I couldn't read. A fireplace crackled in the corner, casting dancing shadows across the walls. And there, standing by the window with his back to me, was Dante Volov. He'd shed his suit jacket. His white shirt was rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars. His hand held a glass of amber liquid, and he stood so still he could have been carved from stone. You came, he said without turning. You didn't leave me much of a choice. There's always a choice, Sarah. He turned then, and the firelight painted his face in sharp relief. All angles and shadows and brutal beauty. You could have run, disappeared. People do it every day in this city. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. And you would have found me. He moved toward a side table, pouring amber liquid into a second glass. Scotch. It's 30 years old. Probably wasted on anyone who doesn't appreciate the finer points of suffering. I don't drink on the job. Smart. He took a slow sip, his dark eyes never leaving mine. But you're not on the job yet. Right now, you're a woman who just agreed to enter a world she doesn't understand. I'd say that deserves a drink. I took the glass he offered, our fingers brushing. The contact sent electricity up my arm, and from the way his jaw tightened, he felt it, too. Where's Alexei? I asked. Sleeping, finally. Dante's expression softened in a way that made him look almost human. The lullaby you sang over the phone. He listened to it 3 times before he'd close his eyes. Something in my chest ached. You recorded it? I record everything that helps him. He moved to the fireplace, staring into the flames. Do you know what it's like watching your child disappear? Seeing the light go out of their eyes and being powerless to stop it? The rawness in his voice made me take a step closer. What happened to him, Dante? He was quiet for so long. I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, 2 years ago, my wife, Alexei's mother, was killed. Executed, actually, by a rival family. They wanted to send me a message. His knuckles whitened around the glass. Alexei was in the car with her. He watched them put a bullet in her head. He was 3 years old. Horror flooded through me. Oh God! He screamed for hours afterward, days even. And then, one morning, he just stopped. Dante's voice went hollow. He hasn't made a sound since. The doctors say it's trauma-induced mutism, that his mind shut down to protect itself. But I see it differently. How? He turned to face me, and the pain in his eyes was staggering. I think he's trapped in that moment in the car, with his mother's blood on his hands, watching the monsters drive away. And I think he'll stay there until someone can reach him. And you think that someone is me? I know it is. He crossed to me in 3 strides, and suddenly he was too close. His presence overwhelming. You made him hum, Sarah. In 2 years, you're the first person who's made him remember what sound feels like. Do you understand how extraordinary that is? I could smell him now. Expensive cologne mixed with smoke and something uniquely male. Could feel the heat radiating from his body, the intensity of his focus. Why? I whispered. Why me specifically? Dante's hand lifted, his fingers hovering near my face, but not quite touching. I don't know yet, but I will. His eyes searched mine, and I saw the monster and the father warring behind them. You're afraid of me. It wasn't a question. Yes, I admitted. Good. You should be. His thumb finally made contact, brushing my cheekbone so gently it felt like a contradiction. I'm not a good man, Sarah. I've done things that would keep you awake at night. I've hurt people, killed people, built an empire on blood and fear. But my son, his voice cracked. My son is the only pure thing left in my life, and I will do anything to bring him back. The weight of that promise settled over me like a shroud. Your room is upstairs, 3rd door on the left, he said, stepping back and breaking the spell. Alexei's room is next to yours. Someone will bring your things from your apartment tonight. You're moving me in already? I told you, I always get what I need. He moved to his desk, pulling out an envelope. 1st month's payment. Your mother's bills will be handled by morning. I took the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was more money than I'd ever seen. There's one more thing, Dante said, his voice going cold. You'll have a security detail. 2 men always nearby. You don't leave this property without my permission. You don't speak to anyone about what you see here. And if you ever do anything to endanger my son, I wouldn't. I know. His smile was sharp enough to cut. Because if you did, you wouldn't live long enough to regret it. A door opened behind me. A woman in her 50s appeared, her expression warm but weary. Mr. Volov, Alexei is asking for the lady who sings. Dante's entire demeanor transformed. Take her to him, Nina. As I followed the woman, Nina, into the hallway, I looked back once. Dante stood by the fire, watching me with an expression I couldn't name. Hunger, maybe, or recognition, like he'd been waiting his whole life for me to walk through that door. And despite every warning screaming in my head, part of me felt the same. Alexei's room was a contradiction. Half of it looked like any child's sanctuary walls painted soft blue, shelves lined with books and toys, a rocking horse by the window. But the other half told a different story. Blackout curtains reinforced with something heavier. Panic button by the bed. Cameras in two corners, their red lights blinking like warning signs. A prison disguised as a nursery. Nina knocked softly before. Opening the door, Na announced, "Alexei Dorgoy, the singing lady is here." The little boy sat in the center of his bed, propped up by pillows like he was in a fortress. He was wearing different pajamas now, green ones covered in dinosaurs, and his dark curls were damp from sleep. Those huge eyes locked onto mine immediately, and I saw a flicker in their depths. Recognition. "Hi, Alexei," I said softly, staying near the doorway. "Remember me from the diner?" He just stared, unblinking, his small hands clutching a worn stuffed wolf, its fur matted from countless nights of being held tightly. Na touched my arm gently. "He woke from a nightmare about 20 minutes ago. Usually he can't settle down again, but tonight he kept pointing at Mr. Volkov's phone." Her eyes were kind but tired. "I'll be right outside if you need anything." Then she left, and I was alone with the silent child. I moved slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. The bed was oversized for someone so small, making Alexei look even more fragile. I sat on the edge, keeping some distance between us. "Bad dreams are the worst, aren't they?" I kept my voice gentle. "I used to have them, too, when I was little. My mom would sit with me just like this." Alexei's fingers tightened on the wolf. "This is a beautiful room," I continued, letting words fill the silence. "I love dinosaurs, too. Do you have a favorite?" I pointed to the T-Rex on his pajamas. "This guy looks pretty fierce." Nothing, but his eyes tracked my every movement, drinking in each word like water in a desert. I started humming. Not the lullaby yet, just a simple melody, something light and wandering, like thoughts before sleep. Alexei's shoulders lowered incrementally, the tension bleeding out of him. "You know what I think?" I said quietly. "I think you have a lot to say, a whole world of words locked up inside. And maybe they're scared to come out because of what happened. Maybe they think if they stay hidden, the bad things can't find them again." His eyes widened slightly. "But here's a secret, Alexei." I leaned closer. "Words aren't weak. They're the strongest magic we have. They can build worlds, fight monsters, tell people we love them. Your words are still in there, waiting. And when you're ready, not when anyone else says, but when you decide, they'll come back." For a long moment he just stared. Then, slowly, he extended his hand. My breath caught. His small palm opened, offering me the stuffed wolf. "For me?" I whispered, the tiniest nod. I took the wolf carefully, like it was made of glass and wishes. The fur was soft against my fingers, and I could feel the weight of trust in the gesture. This was his comfort, his shield, and he was sharing it. "Thank you," I said, my throat tight. "I'll keep him safe." "What's his name?" Alexei's mouth opened slightly. No sound came out, but I saw his lips form a word. "Mishka, Mishka," I repeated, and his eyes lit up. "That's a perfect name for a brave wolf." I handed Mishka back, and Alexei clutched him close, but something had shifted. The walls around him had thinned just a fraction. "Want to hear the lullaby?" I asked. He nodded, then surprised me by scooting over, making room. I slid closer until I was sitting against his headboard, and he curled into my side like he'd done it 100 times before. His small body was warm, his breath evening out as I began to sing. The words came easier now, flowing like a river finding its course. I sang about stars keeping watch, about brave children who survive the dark, about mornings that always come. My hand found his hair, fingers threading through soft curls the way my mother used to do for me. Halfway through the second verse, I felt it. Alexei was humming, barely audible, just a whisper of sound against my rib cage, but real, his small voice joining mine in tentative harmony. Tears burned my eyes, but I kept singing, kept the melody steady and safe, giving him space to find his way. When the lullaby ended, I started another, then another, until his breathing deepened and his weight grew heavy against me, asleep. I sat there in the dim light, afraid to move and shatter whatever fragile thing we'd built. The cameras blinked in the corners, watching, recording this moment for Dante, probably. The door opened soundlessly. Dante stood in the threshold, and the expression on his face stopped my heart. Raw devastation and hope warred across his features as he took in the scene. His son, sleeping peacefully against a stranger, something like contentment softening that small face. He crossed to us in silence, moving with surprising grace for someone so large. Up close, I could see the exhaustion carved into his features, the shadow of stubble along his jaw, the way his hands shook slightly before he clenched them into fists. "He's humming," Dante whispered, his voice fractured. I heard him. On the monitor I heard. His words broke off, and I watched this dangerous man struggle against emotion too big to contain. "He let me hold him," I said softly. "He shared Mishka." Dante's eyes snapped to mine, and the intensity there made my breath catch. "Do you understand what you've done? In 3 hours, you've reached him more than anyone has in 2 years. "I just sang," I said. He crouched beside the bed, his face level with mine. "You gave him permission to heal, to remember that the world can be safe again." His hand lifted, hovering near where mine rested in Alexi's hair. "You're a miracle, Sarah Mitchell, and I'm starting to think I should be more afraid of you than you are of me." "Why?" His thumb brushed my knuckles, the touch electric. "Because people who can perform miracles are always the most dangerous. They make you believe in things you thought were dead." The air between us thickened, charged with something I didn't want to name. This close, I could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, could feel the heat of him, could smell smoke and expensive fabric and something wild underneath. "I should put him in his own bed," I whispered. "Let me." Dante gathered Alexei with a gentleness that contradicted everything I knew about him. The boy stirred but didn't wake as his father carried him to the pillows, tucking blankets around his small form with practiced care. He pressed a kiss to Alexei's forehead, lingering there like he was absorbing proof his son still lived. When Dante straightened, his eyes found mine across the dim room. "Stay," he said. "Not an order, a plea. Please, in case he wakes again." "Dante, there's a chair. You don't have to." He gestured vaguely, and I realized this formidable man was afraid. Afraid I'd leave, afraid the magic would break, afraid morning would reveal this had all been a dream. "Okay," I heard myself say. "I'll stay." Relief flooded his features. He moved to the door, then paused. "Sarah, thank you for giving me my son back, even for a moment." Then he was gone, and I was alone with the sleeping child and the weight of what I just promised. I settled into the chair by Alexei's bed, watching his chest rise and fall in a peaceful rhythm. Outside the window, the Volov estate sprawled in darkness, beautiful and dangerous, and impossible to escape. And somewhere in its depths, Dante Volov watched monitors and believed in miracles. I closed my eyes, wondering what I'd become by the time I finally left this place, if I ever left at all. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and a small hand patting my face. My eyes flew open. Alexei stood beside the chair, so close I could count his eyelashes. He tilted his head, studying me with those ancient eyes, then pressed something into my palm. A toy car, red, with tiny wheels that actually turned. "Good morning," I whispered, my voice rough from sleep, every muscle aching from the night spent curled in the chair. "Is this for me?" He nodded, solemn as a judge. "It's perfect." I turned the car over in my hands, feeling the weight of another offering. "Thank you, Alexei." His lips curved, not quite a smile, but close, so heartbreakingly close. The door opened, and Na entered with a breakfast tray. "Oh good, you're awake. Mr. Volov asked that you join him for breakfast once you're ready." Her eyes were knowing, almost pitying. "He's in the sunroom. I'll stay with Alexei." I stood, my body protesting, and followed her directions through the mansion's labyrinth. Morning light transformed everything, the corridors less menacing, the artwork almost warm. Through windows I glimpsed gardens that looked professionally maintained. And in the distance, the high walls that kept the world at bay. The sunroom was glass and light, filled with plants that shouldn't survive indoors but somehow thrived. Dante sat at a small table, dressed in dark slacks and a gray shirt, reading something on a tablet. A cup of coffee steamed beside him. He looked up when I entered, and something shifted in his expression. "You stayed all night. You asked me to. I didn't think you would." He gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit. Eat. You look like you haven't had a decent meal in weeks." He wasn't wrong. The spread before me was obscene: fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, bacon, things I couldn't even name. My stomach growled traitorously. "Alexei gave me a car this morning," I said, sitting. The chair was buttersoft leather. Everything in this house was too beautiful, too expensive, too much. Dante's entire face transformed. "He's never given his toys away. Not since." He stopped, swallowing hard. "What else?" He almost smiled. The tablet clattered to the table. Dante leaned forward, intensity radiating from him like heat. Almost. The corner of his mouth lifted just for a second. I poured coffee, needing something to do with my hands. "It's progress, Dante, but it's going to be slow. You can't expect. I expect miracles from you now." His voice was low, fervent. "You've given me more in one night than 2 years of specialists. Do you know what that means to me?" The way he looked at me made my skin feel too tight, like I was being seen and memorized and claimed all at once. "It means," I said carefully, "that you need to be patient. Trauma like Alexei's doesn't heal overnight. He's learning to trust again, to feel safe. That takes time." Time. Dante's jaw clenched. Every day he stays silent is another day they win. His eyes went cold, shuddering whatever warmth had been there. The people who killed his mother, who stole his voice. He stood abruptly, moving to the windows. "They're still out there, Sarah. Still breathing, still plotting. And every moment Alexei can't speak is a monument to their victory." I set down my coffee cup. "Is that what this is about? Revenge? It's about justice." He spun to face me, and for the first time, I saw the monster clearly. "They took everything from me. My wife, my son's innocence, 2 years of his voice. They took, and they're still taking because Alexei can't tell me what he saw. Can't identify them. Can't help me end this." Horror crawled up my spine. "You want him to remember, so he can identify his mother's killers?" "I want my son to be free." But the evasion was transparent. "He's 5 years old, Dante. 5. And you want him to relive the worst moment of his life so you can. What? Get names? Plan your revenge?" I stood, anger burning through the fear. "Is that why you really brought me here? To unlock his memories so you can use them?" "No." He crossed to me in 2 strides, his presence overwhelming. "That's not. I want him healed, Sarah. That's all I've ever wanted. But if healing means he remembers, you'll use that information." His silence was answer enough. "You're a monster," I whispered. "Yes." No hesitation, no apology. "I am. I've never pretended otherwise." His hand caught my chin, tilting my face up. "But I'm a monster who loves his son more than his own life. And if getting justice for my wife means Alexei can finally be free of that day, then yes, I'll take whatever information he can give me." "And what about what he needs? What if remembering breaks him completely?" "He's already broken." The words exploded from him, raw and bleeding. "He's already trapped in that moment, living it over and over in nightmares I can't reach. At least if he speaks, if he tells me what happened, maybe the truth will set him free." We stood there inches apart, breathing hard. I could see the anguish beneath his anger, the father warring with the killer. "You can't use him like a weapon," I said quietly. "He's not a tool for your vendetta." "I know." Dante's thumb brushed my jawline, the touch achingly gentle. "That's why I need you to keep me honest. To remind me that he's a child first, a witness second." His eyes searched mine. "Will you stay?" Even knowing what I am, what I want. I should have said no. Should have walked out of this beautiful prison and never looked back. But I thought about Alexei's almost smile, about the way he'd hummed against my side, about a little boy who deserved someone in his corner, who saw him as more than a means to an end. "I'll stay," I said, "but I have conditions." Surprise flickered across Dante's face. "You're negotiating with me? You hired me to help Alexei, not feed your revenge. So yes, I'm negotiating." I stepped back, breaking his hold. No pushing him. No asking about that day unless he brings it up himself. His healing comes first, always. Not your justice, not your war, him. And if he volunteers information, then we deal with it together. But you don't get to interrogate a traumatized child. For a long moment, Dante just stared. Then, impossibly, he laughed a dark, genuine sound. "You're either very brave or very stupid, Sarah Mitchell. No one gives me ultimatums. Then consider it a first." Agreed. He extended his hand. "On your terms." I took it, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. "On my terms." We stood there, hands clasped, and I felt the ground shift beneath me again. This wasn't just about Alexei anymore. Something else was building between us, dangerous and inevitable. A phone buzzed. Dante released me, checking the screen. His expression went arctic. "What is it?" I asked. "Security breach. Someone tried to access our perimeter last night." His eyes met mine, and I saw murder in them. "They're getting bolder. They know something's changed." "What do you mean?" He moved to the door, every inch the lethal predator. "It means they're watching. And if they figure out you're here, if they realize Alexei is improving." He turned back, and the fear beneath his fury was palpable. "Stay close to the house today. Don't go outside alone." "And Sarah?" "Yes. If anything happens, you protect my son first, your own life second. Mine doesn't matter at all." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with the breakfast I could no longer eat, and the terrible understanding that I'd just become a target too. The days blurred together in a rhythm I hadn't expected. Mornings with Alexei in the garden. Me singing while he collected leaves and stones. Building small worlds only he understood. Afternoons in his playroom where I read stories, and he listened with fierce concentration, sometimes mouthing words along with me. Evenings that stretched into night, lullabies and whispered conversations where I talked, and he communicated through gestures, drawings, those almost smiles that grew more frequent. He was coming back slowly, carefully, like a flower reaching toward light, but Dante was slipping away. I saw him mostly at night now, brief encounters in hallways, moments when he'd appear in Alexei's doorway to watch us with an expression I couldn't name. He looked more exhausted each time, shadows deepening under his eyes, tension coiling tighter in his shoulders. The security around the estate had tripled. Men with guns patrolled the walls, cameras multiplied like spores, and Dante disappeared for hours into parts of the house I wasn't allowed to access, emerging with blood on his knuckles and murder in his eyes. He was hunting. It was the 8th night when everything changed. I was singing to Alexei, my voice soft in the darkness, when I heard a sound that didn't belong. A scrape of movement in the hallway, too deliberate to be Na or the guards. My hand stilled in Alexei's hair. He felt my tension, his small body going rigid against mine. The door opened. Dante filled the threshold. But this wasn't the controlled man I'd come to know. His shirt was torn. Blood, someone else's, spattered across his chest. His knuckles were split and raw. And his eyes were wild, dangerous, barely human. "Out," he said, his voice gravel with rage. I didn't move. "Dante, out." Not a request, a command wrapped in barely leashed violence. Alexei whimpered, the first sound of fear I'd heard from him, and that decided me. I eased away from the boy, tucking Mishka into his arms. "I'll be right back, sweetheart. Promise." I crossed to Dante, catching his arm. "You're scaring him." "I'm scaring you." He grabbed my wrist, pulling me into the hallway. The door closed behind us, and suddenly, we were alone in the dim corridor, his presence overwhelming and terrifying. "What happened?" I whispered. "We caught someone on the property." His grip tightened, not quite painful, but close. He was watching the house. Had photos, Sarah, of you with Alexei in the garden. Ice flooded my veins. What? They know about you now. Know you're helping him. Dante's other hand slammed against the wall beside my head, caging me. I told you to stay close. I told you the danger. I was in the garden with 4 guards. It wasn't enough. The words exploded from him, and I saw it then, the fear beneath the fury. They had a rifle scope. 1 shot and I would have lost both of you. My breath caught. Where is he now? The man. Dante's smile was terrible. Being persuaded to tell me who sent him. You're torturing him. I'm getting answers. No remorse, no hesitation. And when I have them, I'll kill him. Just like I'll kill everyone who threatens my son. Everyone who threatens you. The way he said that last part, raw and possessive, made something in my stomach twist. I didn't sign up for this, I said, hating how my voice shook. For being a target, for watching you become a monster. He leaned closer, and I could smell blood and smoke and fury on him. I told you what I was, Sarah. I warned you, but you stayed anyway. Why? For Alexei? Liar. His thumb pressed against my racing pulse. You stayed because you see something in me that shouldn't exist. Something you think you can save. I don't. You do. His forehead dropped to mine, and the intimacy of it stole my breath. You look at me like I'm still human, like the man exists beneath the monster. And God help me, when you look at me like that, I almost believe it. We stood there breathing the same air, balanced on the edge of something catastrophic. I should leave, I whispered. Yes, but his hands didn't release me. You should run as far from here as possible. They'd find me, you said yourself. I'd protect you, hide you somewhere they'd never look. His voice dropped to something broken. I'd give up knowing if you were safe if it meant you were alive. The sacrifice in those words undid something in me. Dante. I lifted my hand, touching his face despite every warning screaming in my head. His stubble was rough against my palm, and beneath it, his jaw clenched. You can't save everyone by destroying yourself. Watch me. But he turned into my touch, and the gesture was so vulnerable I felt something crack in my chest. A sound from Alexei's room, a small cry. We both moved instinctively, breaking apart. Dante reached the door first, but I was right behind him. Alexei sat up in bed, tears streaming down his face. Mishka clutched to his chest. His mouth opened and closed soundlessly, trying to form words that wouldn't come. Sin. Dante crossed to him in 2 strides, gathering him close. I'm here. Papa's here. But Alexei reached past his father, small arms extending toward me. Dante's face did something complicated, pain and relief and jealousy all at once. He wants you. I climbed onto the bed, and Alexei immediately transferred to my lap, his small body shaking. I started humming, rocking him gently, feeling Dante's eyes on us. Sing, Dante said quietly. Please. So I did. The lullaby poured out of me while Alexei buried his face in my neck, and Dante sat beside us, his hand resting on his son's back. We were a strange trinity, the broken child, the monster father, the woman who'd stumbled into their darkness. Halfway through the 2nd verse, I felt it. Alexei was crying, actually crying. Not the silent tears I'd seen before, but small, hiccuping sobs that came with sound. Broken, aching sounds that meant his voice was fighting its way back. Dante heard it, too. His hand covered his mouth, and I saw moisture in his eyes. This man who killed without remorse, breaking at the sound of his son's grief. That's it, baby, I whispered to Alexei. Let it out. All of it. The sobs continued for long minutes, purging 2 years of trapped anguish. When they finally subsided, Alexei lifted his head. His eyes were red and swollen, but something had shifted, something had loosened. His mouth opened. Air moved across his vocal cords, and in a voice rusty from disuse, barely more than a whisper, he spoke. Mama. The world stopped. Dante made a sound I'd never heard before, animal and human, and completely shattered. Alexei, sin, you. Mama gone. Those small syllables shaped by a tongue remembering language. Bad men. Mama gone. He started crying again. And this time, Dante pulled us both into his arms, his son and me holding on like we were the only things keeping him from flying apart. I know, baby. I know. Dante's voice broke. But you're safe now. Promise. No one will hurt you again. Alexei's small hand patted his father's wet face, then turned to me. His mouth worked and I saw him fighting for the words. Stay. He finally managed. Sarah, stay. I'm not going anywhere. I promised. Even as I felt Dante's arms tighten around us both. Even as I realized I just sealed my fate in this beautiful, terrible world. Outside, the interrogation continued. The war escalated. The danger closed in. But in this room, a little boy had spoken his first words in 2 years, and nothing would ever be the same. Alexei didn't stop talking. Not in full sentences, not yet, but words came in trickles, then streams: hungry, tired, Mishka, Sarah. Each one a small miracle that made Dante's eyes shine with something too fragile to name. But with the words came nightmares. 3 nights after Alexei spoke, I woke up screaming. Real, audible screaming that tore through the mansion like a siren. My heart hammering in my chest. I ran to his room and found Dante already there, struggling to hold his thrashing son. No, 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 no. Alexei's voice was hoarse, terrified. Mama, blood. So much blood. Alexa, you're safe. Dante's voice cracked, strained. Papa, they shot her and she stopped moving and there was blood. The words poured out in a torrent, a flood. 2 years of trapped horror finally finding a voice. I climbed onto the bed, pulling Alexei into my arms, holding him tight. I'm here, sweetheart. You're safe. It's just a dream. Not dream. He sobbed against my chest, shaking. Happened. They killed Mama, and I couldn't say anything. Couldn't tell. Dante's face had gone completely white. Who? Alexei. Who were they? Dante, no. I started trying to intervene. Who killed your mama? Alexei, do you remember their faces? Stop it. I snapped, even as Alexei's sobs intensified, racking his small body. Can't you see what you're doing? But something had broken open inside Alexei, and the words kept coming, tumbling out between gasps. 3 men, black car. One had a scar. Here. His small finger traced a line down his own cheek. He smiled when he did it. Smiled. Dante stood abruptly, his entire body vibrating, trembling with rage. What else? Tattoos, accents, anything. Dante. I held Alexei tighter, protectively. He's 5 years old and terrified. He's the only witness I have. Dante roared, his voice raw, and Alexei flinched, burying his face against me. 2 years I've searched. 2 years of dead ends and lies. And my son knows? Your son is traumatized. I was on my feet now, Alexei clinging to me like a lifeline. Do you want answers? Fine. But not like this. Not when he's falling apart. Something in Dante's expression shifted. A complicated mix of realization and horror warring with a desperate, overwhelming need. He reached for Alexei, but the boy turned his face into my shoulder, seeking comfort. Papa scary. Alexei whispered, his voice small and trembling. I watched those 3 words destroy Dante Vulov more completely than any bullet ever could. He stepped back, his hands shaking visibly. I'm sorry, Sin. I'm so sorry. His voice fractured, breaking on the last word. I need to make them pay. I need to finish this. Not at his expense. I gentled my tone, seeing the heartbroken father beneath the fury. Get the information, Dante, but do it the right way. Let him heal first. Let him feel safe enough to tell you when he's ready. Dante's jaw clenched, tight and hard. For a moment I thought he'd argue, demand, command. Instead, he nodded once, a single sharp movement, and walked out. The door closed with a terrible finality that echoed in the sudden silence. I spent the rest of the night with Alexei, singing until my voice was hoarse, holding him until his small body finally relaxed into an exhausted, fitful sleep. But I couldn't stop thinking about Dante's face, the way he'd looked at his son, like a man drowning in his own pain. At dawn, I found him. He was in a room I hadn't seen before, a study different from the others, austere and cold, almost sterile. Maps covered the walls, crisscrossed with pins and strings connecting locations. Photos of men, each with a bold red X marked through their faces, stared back at me. A war room. Dante sat at the desk, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring blankly at nothing. "You should be with Alexei," he said, his voice flat and weary, without looking up. "Nina's with him." I closed the door behind me softly but firmly. "We need to talk. There's nothing to say. I'm a monster who scared his own son. I think that speaks for itself." I crossed to him, gently taking the glass from his hand and setting it aside. "You're a father who's been in pain for 2 years, who watched his wife murdered and his son disappear into silence. You're not a monster, Dante. You're human, and humans break." He finally looked at me, and the raw devastation in his eyes stole my breath, leaving me breathless. "I promised to protect them, both of them, and I failed. Katia died because of me, because of this life. And Alexei," his voice caught in his throat, thick with emotion. "He's afraid of me, Sarah. My own son flinched from my touch. Because you were frightening in that moment, not because of who you are." I knelt before him, forcing him to meet my eyes, holding his gaze. "Alexei loves you. He says Papa a dozen times a day. He watches the door, waiting for you. But right now, he's remembering the worst day of his life, and you demanded he relive it for information." "I know." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and I'd never seen him look so defeated, so utterly broken. "I know, and I hate myself for it. But Sarah, those men are still out there. Every day they breathe is another day they could come back, could finish what they started. So you find them another way. Investigation, evidence, whatever it is you do." My hands covered his, offering comfort and support. "But you don't sacrifice your son's healing for revenge. It's not revenge." His fingers laced through mine, gripping tight, his knuckles white. "It's survival. As long as they're alive, my family isn't safe. You aren't safe." The way he included me in that phrase, "my family," made something warm and terrifying bloom deep in my chest, a dangerous and exhilarating feeling. "Then we be smart," I said, my voice firm but gentle. "We let Alexei heal at his own pace. And when he's ready, when he feels safe enough, he'll tell you everything, but on his terms." Dante studied me for a long moment, his gaze intense and searching. "How did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I know what it's like to lose everything, to watch someone you love suffer and feel powerless." I thought of my mother, of hospital rooms and impossible choices, the echoes of grief still sharp and raw. But I also know that love is real. Love means putting the other person first, even when it costs you everything. His hand lifted, cupping my face with a tenderness that contradicted everything I thought I knew about him, about his cold and ruthless exterior. "You're too good for this world, Sarah Mitchell. Too good for me, maybe." I leaned into his touch despite myself, drawn to him like a moth to a flame, knowing I was playing with fire. "But I'm here anyway." "Why?" The question was raw, stripped bare of any pretense, genuine and vulnerable. "You could leave, take the money, disappear. You don't owe us anything. I owe Alexei the chance to be a child again." My thumb traced the jagged scar on his knuckle, a permanent reminder of the life he led, the choices he'd made. "And I owe you, I don't know, the truth, maybe." "What truth?" I took a breath, feeling the ground shift beneath me again, the precarious balance of our relationship tilting dangerously. "That when I look at you, I don't just see the monster. I see the man who reads his son bedtime stories in Russian, who keeps Katia's picture by his bed, who breaks apart when Alexei cries because he feels too much, not too little." My voice dropped to a whisper, filled with an emotion I couldn't deny. "I see someone worth saving, even if you don't think you are." Dante's forehead touched mine, and we stayed there, breathing the same air, balanced on the precipice of something neither of us could name, something dangerous and inevitable. "I'm falling for you," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. And it terrifies me more than any enemy ever has. My heart stopped, then started again, racing in my chest. Dante, I know it's wrong. I know I have no right to feel this when my wife's killers still breathe. When my son needs me whole. But Sarah, you walk into a room and everything dark in me wants to be light. You touch me, and I remember what it feels like to be human. I should have pulled away, should have established boundaries, remembered my role. Instead, I kissed him. It was soft at first, hesitant, a question more than an answer, a tentative exploration. But then his hand threaded into my hair, pulling me closer, and the kiss deepened, became something desperate and aching and inevitable. A release of pent-up tension and unspoken desires. He tasted like whiskey and grief and hope, a potent and intoxicating combination. And I poured 2 months of tension and fear and growing feelings into the connection between us. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back around us, shattering the illusion of intimacy. This is insane, I whispered, my voice shaky. Yes. His thumb traced my swollen lips, his gaze intense and unwavering. Probably gonna get us both killed. Definitely complicated. Impossibly so. But he kissed me again, softer this time, a silent plea. Stay anyway, please. Before I could answer, the door burst open, shattering the fragile moment. One of Dante's men, Victor, I thought his name was, stood there, his face grim and unreadable. Boss, we have a problem. Dante was on his feet instantly, the ruthless, calculating monster sliding back into place, masking the vulnerable man beneath. What? The man we interrogated. Before he died, he talked. The Morozov family sent him. Victor's eyes flicked to me nervously, conveying a message he couldn't speak aloud. And they know about her, about what she means to you and the boy. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees, chilling me to the bone. How much do they know? Dante's voice was lethally calm, a dangerous undertone humming beneath the surface. Everything, sir. They've been watching for weeks. Dante turned to me, and the raw fear in his eyes was absolute. A stark and terrifying vulnerability. Get Alexei, pack bags. We're moving you both to the safe house within the hour. Dante, what? They're coming, Sarah. He gripped my shoulders, his fingers digging into my skin. And when they want it, do I need you and my son far away from here? What about you? His smile was sharp as broken glass, a fleeting glimpse of the danger he faced. I'm going to war. The safe house was a lie. Not in location. It was real enough. Tucked away in the mountains 2 hours from the city, surrounded by dense forest and heavily armed guards. But the word, safe, felt like a mockery. A cruel joke. When I could hear gunfire echoing in my memories, a constant reminder of the violence that surrounded us. When every shadow made me reach for Alexei, pulling him closer, protecting him. When Dante's absence carved a hole in my chest I hadn't known existed. A gaping wound that ached with longing and fear. We'd been there 4 days. For days of Alexei asking, Papa coming? In his small, newly returned voice, his innocent question twisting the knife in my heart. For days of me lying, saying, soon, sweetheart. While my phone stayed silent, mockingly so. For days of watching the news and seeing nothing, which somehow felt worse than seeing everything, the absence of information fueling my anxiety. Nina tried to maintain normalcy, enforcing regular meals, playtime, bedtime routines, a desperate attempt to create a semblance of order in the chaos. But we all felt it, the waiting, the dread, the heavy knowledge that somewhere in the city, a brutal war was being waged in our names. On the 5th night, my phone finally rang, shattering the oppressive silence. Not Dante. Victor. Miss Mitchell. His voice was strained, tight with a barely suppressed panic. We have a situation. My blood turned to ice, freezing my veins. Where's Dante? Alive? Barely. A long pause, thick with unspoken fears and grim possibilities, stretched between us. The Morozovs hit 3 of our locations simultaneously. We lost 12 men. The boss, he took a bullet, refused medical care until he knew you and Alexei were secure. How bad? Bad enough that he's being stupid about it. Victor's frustration bled through, his loyalty to Dante warring with his concern for his well-being. He won't leave the compound, won't rest, won't let anyone close the wound properly. Says he doesn't have time to be weak. Of course he did. Put him on. He won't. Victor, put him on the phone, or I swear I'll drive back to the city myself, and you can explain to your boss why you let his son's caretaker walk into a war zone. A long, tense silence, then the sound of rustling voices, hushed and urgent. And finally, Dante's voice, rough and strained. You're supposed to be hiding. You're supposed to be getting medical attention, not bleeding out because you're too stubborn to admit you're human. I moved to the window, needing to see the perimeter guards, needing to feel like I had any control over the situation, grasping for anything solid in the swirling chaos. Victor says you took a bullet. It's nothing, Dante. I've had worse. But I heard the lie in his voice, the exhaustion he couldn't quite hide, the weariness that settled over him like a shroud. How's Alexei? Asking for you constantly? Worried like his father is being an idiot and refusing help while enemies circle? I softened my tone, trying to reason with him, appealing to the father beneath the hardened exterior. Please get medical care. Let someone stitch you up properly. I can't. The Morozovs know I'm wounded. They're watching the hospitals, the private doctors. If I show weakness now, they'll strike again, harder. Then you're just going to bleed. If that's what it takes to keep you safe. The absoluteness in those words terrified me. The unwavering commitment to protecting me and Alexei, even at his own expense. Sarah, listen to me. The situation here is deteriorating. They're escalating faster than I anticipated. I need you to be ready to move again. Gunfire erupted in the background, sharp and sudden, cutting through his words. Close. Too close. Dante. My heart stopped beating for a moment. I have to go. Stay inside. Trust no one but Victor. His breathing was labored now, ragged and strained. Sarah, if something happens, don't you dare. Tears burned my eyes, blurring my vision. Don't you dare say goodbye to me. If something happens, he continued, his voice fierce, overriding my protest. There's a box in your room, red, locked. The key is taped under Alexis's bed. Inside is everything you need: money, passports, instructions. You take my son and you run. You hear me? You don't look back. You don't try to help. You just run. I'm not leaving you. You will if I tell you to. The command in his voice was absolute, brooking no argument. Promise me, Sarah. Promise me that Alexei's life comes first. Always. More gunfire, closer now. Shouting. The sound of breaking glass. A symphony of chaos and violence. Dante. I was screaming now, unable to stop myself, my voice raw with terror. Promise me. I promise. The words tore from my throat. A desperate plea. I promise. Just please don't die. Please. The line went dead, leaving me standing there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to silence and feeling my world fracture and crumble around me. Sarah? Alexei appeared in the doorway, his eyes wide with fear. Mishka clutched tightly to his chest. Papa. Okay. I shoved down the terror, forcing my face into something resembling calm, desperate to shield him from the truth. Papa's working, baby. He'll be home soon. You crying? His small face crumpled, his lower lip trembling. Papa hurt. God, when had this child become so perceptive, so attuned to the emotions around him? I crossed to him, kneeling to his level, meeting his gaze. Your papa is very strong, and he's fighting to keep us safe. Can you be brave like him? Alexei considered this, his brow furrowed in concentration, then nodded seriously, his small face determined. I brave like papa. That's my boy. I pulled him close, breathing in the familiar scent of his strawberry shampoo, clinging to him for comfort, trying not to think about red boxes and emergency passports and the terrifying possibility of a world without Dante in it. We just settled into bed, Alexei insisting on sleeping in my room. When I heard it, a sound that didn't belong, a subtle disruption in the otherwise peaceful night. A scrape of movement outside the window, barely audible, but enough to send a jolt of adrenaline through my veins. Every instinct screamed danger, warning me of an imminent threat. I grabbed Alexei, my hand gently covering his mouth to keep him quiet, stifling any sound, and moved us quickly into the closet, seeking refuge in the confined space. Through the crack in the door, I watched the bedroom window slide open with practiced silence. A silent and deadly invasion. A man entered the room. Black clothes, gloves, a gun with a silencer, not one of our guards. My heart hammered so loud I was sure he could hear it, its frantic rhythm echoing in the small space. Alexei trembled against me, his small fingers digging into my arms, and I prayed with every fiber of my being that he wouldn't make a sound, wouldn't betray our hiding place. The intruder moved through the room systematically, his movements precise and efficient, checking the bed, the bathroom, his gaze sharp and searching. He was moving closer to the closet with every step, closing the distance between us, tightening the noose around our necks. I remembered searching under Alexei's bed earlier. I knew where the key was. My fingers found it now, taped exactly where Dante had said it would be, a small metal key that held the potential for escape, for survival. I closed my fist around it, the metal biting into my palm, a small but tangible reassurance. The closet door flew open, the sudden movement making me gasp. The man's eyes found us immediately, his gaze locking onto ours, cold and devoid of emotion. His gun rose, aiming directly at us, and Alexei screamed. Not wordless terror, not a primal cry of fear, but actual words, loud and clear and devastating, spoken with a child's innocent desperation. "Don't hurt Sarah. Don't hurt Sarah." The distraction cost the intruder half a second, a momentary hesitation, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. It was enough. Victor crashed through the bedroom door, weapon drawn, his movements swift and decisive. 2 shots, precise and lethal, echoed in the room. The intruder dropped to the floor, lifeless. More guards flooded in, securing the room, checking for additional threats, their faces grim and determined. Victor grabbed my arm, pulling us from the closet, his grip firm and urgent. "How many?" I gasped, breathless with fear. "Just him." He cut the perimeter feed. We didn't see him approach. Victor's face was grim, his expression unreadable. "Miss Mitchell, this location is compromised. We need to move now. There's a secondary safe house, more remote." He looked at Alexei, who was sobbing silently into my shoulder, his small body racked with fear. "But I need to be honest with you. With the boss injured and the Morozovs escalating, nowhere is truly safe anymore." I thought about the red box, about Dante's instructions to run, to disappear, to prioritize Alexei's safety above all else. "Take us to him," I said, my voice firm and unwavering, brooking no argument. "Miss Mitchell," the boss specifically said. I don't care what he said. I hitched Alexei higher on my hip, holding him close, drawing strength from his small presence. "That man is bleeding and refusing help because he's trying to protect us. But we're not safe anywhere without him. So, you're going to take us back to the city, to wherever Dante is, and we're going to face this together." That's insane. The compound is under siege. Then we'll be under siege together. I met Victor's eyes, letting him see my certainty, my unwavering resolve. "I'm not running, Victor. Not anymore. That's not what family does." Something shifted in Victor's expression. A subtle change that hinted at a grudging respect, or perhaps a recognition of the bond between us, the strength of our unconventional family. He nodded once, his decision made. "The boss is going to kill me for this. Only if he survives long enough to try." 20 minutes later, we were in an armored SUV, racing through the winding mountain roads toward the city, toward danger, toward Dante. Alexei had gone quiet, his small hand clutching mine, his grip tight and reassuring. When he spoke, his voice was small but clear, his words filled with a quiet determination that mirrored my own. "We save Papa?" I kissed his forehead, my heart breaking and mending simultaneously, overwhelmed by a wave of love and protectiveness. "Yes, baby. We save Papa, even if it kills us all." The city lights appeared on the horizon like a distant war zone, a stark and unsettling welcome, and I knew with terrible certainty that everything was about to change, that we were heading into the heart of the storm. The Volov compound looked like a battlefield, a scene of devastation and chaos. Bullet holes scarred the elegant facade, marring its beauty and exposing the violence beneath. Windows were shattered, their glass glittering like ice across the courtyard, a fragile and dangerous beauty. Armed men patrolled the grounds with weapons drawn, their faces haggard and alert, their eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of threat. Smoke still rose from what had once been the East Wing, a smoldering testament to the brutality of the attack. "Jesus," Victor muttered, pulling up to the entrance, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and dismay. "It's worse than I thought." Alexei pressed against me, his small body trembling, sensing the danger that surrounded us. "Papa here?" "Yes, sweetheart. I hoped I wasn't lying, that Dante was still alive, still fighting, still waiting for us. Papa's here." Victor led us through corridors that felt apocalyptic, a stark and unsettling reminder of the war that had been waged within these walls. Overturned furniture, blood stains on marble floors, the acrid smell of gunpowder hanging heavy in the air, a suffocating reminder of the violence that had taken place. Men nodded at Victor as we passed, their eyes widening when they saw me and Alexei, their surprise evident. "Boss doesn't know you're coming," one of them said, his voice low and concerned. "He's gonna lose his mind. That's his problem." I kept moving, ignoring their warnings, following Victor deeper into the compound, drawn by an irresistible force, a need to reach Dante, to be by his side. We found Dante in the war room, the heart of his operation, the place where battles were planned and strategies were devised. He stood at the table, leaning heavily on his hands for support, studying maps with an intensity that bordered on manic, his gaze fixed on the intricate details, searching for any advantage. His shirt was torn and blood-soaked, fresh blood, not dried, a stark and alarming sight. A makeshift bandage wrapped his shoulder, already seeping red, a testament to the severity of his wound. His face was pale and drawn, etched with exhaustion and pain, and when he shifted his weight, I saw him wince, a fleeting glimpse of the suffering he was enduring. "Boss," Victor said carefully, his voice respectful but firm. "You have visitors." Dante looked up, his eyes widening in surprise. For one unguarded moment, his expression was a complex mixture of emotions, relief and horror and fury all at once, a fleeting glimpse of the man beneath the hardened exterior. Then the mask slammed back into place, concealing his vulnerability, hardening his features into a familiar scowl. "What the hell are you doing here?" His voice was lethally quiet, a dangerous warning. "I gave explicit orders." "Papa!" Alexei wriggled from my arms, his fear momentarily forgotten, running towards his father with a joyful cry. Dante caught him reflexively, his movements stiff and awkward, then groaned as the sudden movement tore at his wound, sending a sharp jolt of pain through his body. But he held his son close, his face pressing into those dark curls, breathing deeply as if drawing strength from his presence, breathing like he'd been drowning and Alexei was air. "Sin, my sin." His voice cracked with emotion, raw and vulnerable. "You're supposed to be safe." We weren't safe. I moved closer, taking in the full extent of his injuries, the severity of his condition. The bandage was soaked through, saturated with blood. His breathing was shallow and labored. The safe house was compromised. They sent someone. Dante's eyes snapped to Victor, his gaze sharp and accusing. "Is he dead?" "Very." Victor shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Dante's gaze. "But Miss Mitchell insisted on coming here." I tried to stop her. "Leave us." Dante's command was absolute, brooking no argument. Victor and the other men filed out, leaving us alone in the war room, the silence heavy and oppressive, broken only by Alexei's soft breathing and the distant sounds of gunfire. "You should have run," Dante said finally, his voice low and strained. "Like I told you." "And go where?" "They found us in the mountains." "Dante, they'll find us anywhere." I approached him slowly, cautiously, like nearing a wounded animal, afraid of startling him, of triggering his anger. Besides, I made a different promise to myself. What promise? That I wouldn't let you die alone because you're too stubborn to ask for help. His laugh was bitter, a harsh and self-deprecating sound. I'm not dying. You're bleeding through your bandage, and you can barely stand. I reached for him, offering my support, but he stepped back, a slight movement that caused him pain, judging by the way he paled. Dante, please let me help. I don't need. Papa hurt, Alexei said, his small voice cutting through the tension, his innocent words carrying more weight than any argument I could make. Serapix. Those 3 words accomplished what my arguments couldn't. Dante's shoulders sagged in defeat, his resistance crumbling. Fine. He moved to the leather couch against the wall, sitting heavily, his body protesting with every movement. But make it quick. The Morozovs will regroup and strike again within hours. I settled Alexei in a chair with Mishka and one of Dante's tablets, cued to cartoons, hoping to distract him from the chaos around us. Then I found the first aid supplies, a surprisingly well-stocked kit in the war room, a testament to the violence that was an integral part of his life. I returned to Dante, my movements deliberate and focused. Shirt off, I said, my voice firm and professional, trying to ignore the nervous flutter in my stomach. His eyes met mine, and something dangerous flickered there, a spark of desire amidst the chaos. Careful, Malaya. I might think you have ulterior motives. Just shut up and let me work. I helped him ease the torn shirt off, trying not to react to what I saw, to the graphic evidence of the violence he had endured. His torso was a map of violence, a canvas of pain. Old scars layered over muscle, a testament to battles fought and won, or barely survived. New bruises bloomed purple and black, evidence of recent injuries. And the gunshot wound in his shoulder, angry and deep, still seeping blood, a stark and alarming sight. It needs stitches, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper, filled with concern. Real stitches from a doctor. No doctors. Do what you can. My hands shook as I cleaned the wound, feeling him tense under my touch, his muscles tight and rigid. This is going to hurt. Everything hurts. But when I started stitching, he made no sound, didn't flinch, didn't cry out. He just stared at the ceiling, jaw clenched, breathing through his nose, his control absolute. Why won't you go to a hospital? I asked, threading the needle I'd found in the supplies, my movements careful and precise. You could have proper care. Because hospitals have records, because the Morozovs own half the medical staff in this city, because the moment I show weakness, they'll come for everyone I love. His eyes found mine, his gaze intense and unwavering, filled with a raw and vulnerable emotion. And I love too much now, too many people to protect. The confession hung between us, raw and bleeding, a painful and honest truth. Is this because of me? I whispered, my voice trembling, overwhelmed by guilt. Because I came into your life? No. His hand caught mine, stopping my work, his touch surprisingly gentle. This is because of me. Because I'm a Volov. Because I chose this life. Because violence follows my bloodline like a curse. You and Alexei, you're the only good things I've ever had. And they're trying to take you because that's how this world works. It destroys anything beautiful. I resumed stitching, each pull of the thread careful and precise, my movements steadying with a renewed sense of purpose. Then maybe it's time to leave this world. I can't. The Volovs don't retire. Sarah, we die or we disappear. And disappearing just means dying slower. Then die slower. I tied off the last stitch, securing the makeshift closure, covering the wound with a fresh bandage. Take Alexei and disappear. Give him a chance at a normal life. And you? His hand cupped my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone, his touch tender and possessive. Where would you be in this fantasy? I leaned into his touch, closing my eyes, feeling tears threaten to spill over. Wherever you need me. I need you everywhere. He pulled me closer until I was standing between his legs, his forehead resting against my stomach, his body pressed against mine. I need you in the morning when I wake up. I need you at night when the nightmares come. I need you in every moment between, reminding me that I'm more than the monster everyone sees. My fingers threaded through his hair, feeling him shake, the vulnerability he rarely showed breaking through the surface. "Dante, I'm in love with you." The words came muffled against my shirt, desperate and true, a confession I could no longer deny. Completely, destructively in love with you. And it's the worst possible timing because I can't keep you safe, can't promise you tomorrow, can't offer you anything but danger and death. I tilted his face up, forcing him to meet my gaze, cutting off his words with a kiss. A kiss that was more than just a kiss, a desperate attempt to connect, to reassure, to express the emotions that surged through me. This one was different from the kiss in the study, different from any kiss we had shared before. This was hunger and desperation and the acknowledgement that tomorrow might not come, that this could be our last moment together. His hands gripped my waist, pulling me down until I straddled his lap, careful of his wounds, but unable to maintain any distance between us, surrendering to the desire that consumed us. "I love you, too," I gasped between kisses, my voice shaky with emotion. "God help me, I love you too." His mouth moved to my throat, my collarbone, his touch reverent and claiming, branding me as his. "Say it again. I love you again. I love you, Dante Volov. Monster. And man, all of it." He kissed me again, and that kiss was like fire. His hands moved under my shirt, touching my skin, and I leaned closer, even though it felt wrong. Alexei was right there, and we were in a war zone. Sarah and Papa were kissing. Alexis's voice was just curious, not angry. We stopped kissing, both of us breathing hard. I looked over and saw him watching us with his old eyes. His head tilted like he was asking a question. "Is that okay?" I asked, my voice shaking because Papa and I were kissing. Alexei nodded, serious. "Sarah makes Papa smile. Mama want Papa smile." Dante made a sad sound. "You remember Mama saying that? Mama said find happiness again. Said her love big enough to want Papa happy." He got down from the chair and brought Mishka over. "Sarah make you happy?" "Yes." Dante held his son close with one arm and me with the other. "Sarah makes me very happy." "Good." Alexei leaned against his father's good side. "Then we family." Those simple words, and the way he said them like he knew it was true, made me cry. "Yes," I whispered. "We're family." We sat there together, all tangled up on a bloody couch in a war room, while outside it was getting dark, and our enemies were planning, and danger was all around us. But for one perfect, fragile moment we were a family. Then the alarm started screaming. Dante jumped up, like he didn't even feel the pain anymore. "They're here." The next half hour was crazy. Dante was yelling orders into his phone, pulling on a bulletproof vest with one hand, his face all business. Victor ran in with 3 other guys all holding guns. "How many?" Dante asked. "At least 20. 2 cars got through the south gate. They're not trying to be quiet this time, boss. They want to fight. Then they'll get one." Dante looked at me, and I saw how scared he was. "Take Alexei to the safe room. It's on the 3rd level behind the wine cellar. The code is his birthday. Stay there until I come for you. Dante, please." He grabbed my shoulders like he needed me to understand. "I can't fight if I'm worried about you. I need to know you're both safe." Alexei was holding onto my leg, his little voice shaking. "Papa, come back." Dante kneeled down and put his hands on his son's face. "I will always come back to you. Always. Do you believe me?" "Yes, Papa. I love you. Sin. More than anything in this world." He kissed Alexis's forehead, then looked at me. "Keep him safe. Keep yourself safe," I said. He pulled me into a kiss, hard and desperate, like it was goodbye. "I love you, Sarah Mitchell. In this life and whatever comes after." Then he was gone, running down the hall with his men, leaving me with a scared kid and the sound of guns getting closer. I picked up Alexei and ran. The safe room was right where Dante said, hidden behind a fake wall in the wine cellar, and you needed the code to get in. Inside, it was a strong room with supplies, radios, and thick walls that could stop a bomb. I locked us in, the heavy door sealing with a hiss. Alexei was really crying now, with tears and little sobs. "Papa fighting. Papa hurt. Papa is strong," I said, holding him close. And he has good men with him. He's going to be okay. But the guns were so loud, even through the walls. The floor shook from explosions, and all I could think about was Dante, already hurt, fighting an army to protect us. Sing, Alexei whispered, like Mama used to. So I sang every lullaby I knew, my voice shaking but trying to be strong. Alexis held Mishka tight and hummed along when he could, and we made our own safe space against the violence outside. Felt like hours or maybe just minutes. Time didn't matter in that underground room. Then the shooting stopped. The silence was even scarier. I stared at the door, my heart pounding, wondering if Dante was alive or dead, wondering if the men coming down those stairs would be his or theirs. The intercom crackled. "Sarah, it's Victor. We need you up here now." Something in his voice made me freeze. I grabbed Alexei, punched in the code, and ran. The place was destroyed. There were bodies everywhere, and I tried not to look too close. Blood was all over the walls. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and death. Victor met us at the stairs, his face serious. "He's alive. But you need to see him." "How bad?" "Bad." They had made a first aid area in what used to be the dining room. Men were lying on tables and medics were rushing around. And there, in the middle of the room under the chandelier, was Dante. He was awake but barely. His face was pale from losing blood. The wound on his shoulder had opened up again. And there was a new wound in his side, bleeding badly. "Dante!" I ran to him, still holding Alexei. His eyes opened and he looked at us, like it took all his strength. "You're safe. Thank God you're safe." "We need to get him to a hospital," a medic said. "He's lost too much blood." "No hospitals." Dante's voice was weak but firm. "Too dangerous." "You'll die here," the medic said. "Then I die." He took my hand, his grip still strong. "But they don't win. The Morozovs are finished. We got them all. Every last one who came here. The war is over." "Not if you die," I said, crying. "Not if you leave us now." Alexei reached for his father and touched his cheek with his little fingers. "Don't go like Mama. Please stay." Something in Dante's face changed. "Alexei, please, Papa. I just got my words back. I have so much to tell you about dinosaurs and stars and how Sarah makes the best pancakes and I love you so much." The words came pouring out, like he had been saving them up for 2 years. "You can't go. You promised you always come back." Dante closed his eyes, and tears came out. "I did promise, didn't I?" "Then keep it," I said, my voice breaking. "Let us take you to a hospital. Let them save you. Please, Dante. Don't make us lose you when we just became a family." He didn't say anything for a long time. Then, "Victor, take us to St. Catherine's. Tell Dr. Reeves I'm calling in my favor." I felt so relieved. I almost fell down. The next hour was a blur of ambulance, hospital, and surgery. Alexei and I waited in a private room while the doctors tried to save Dante's life. The boy fell asleep against me, worn out from being scared and crying, and I held him and prayed to every god I could think of. The sun was coming up when Dr. Reeves finally came in. "He's stable," she said, and I could breathe again. "The surgery went well. He'll need weeks to get better, but he's going to live. Can we see him soon? He's asking for you both." She smiled, tired. "That man is too stubborn to die. I think you have something to do with that." When they finally let us in, Dante was awake, connected to machines but alive. He looked at us right away, and I could see how relieved he was. "Papa." Alexei carefully climbed onto the bed, trying not to touch the tubes and wires. "Hey, Sin." Dante's voice was scratchy but warm. "Sorry I scared you. You promised. You kept promise." Alexei snuggled up against his father's good side. "We go home now soon." Dante looked at me over his son's head. "But I've been thinking, maybe it's time for a new home. Somewhere far from this city. Somewhere safe." I moved closer and took his hand. "You mean it? You'd really leave?" "The Morozov leaders are dead. My men can take care of what's left." And I realized something while I was bleeding on my dining room table. He touched my hand with his thumb. "Nothing. No empire, no revenge, no history is more important than you two. So yes, we leave. We find some quiet place where Alexei can be a normal kid, where you can sing without being afraid, where I can learn to be something other than a monster. You were never just a monster, I said softly. You were always a father, always a man who could love because of you. He pulled me closer and we made a triangle with Alexei in the middle. Dante's hand held mine, and our foreheads almost touched. You saved my son. You saved me. Now let me save us. Let me give us the life we deserve. Yes, I whispered. Yes to all of it. 3 months later, we were standing on a beach in Croatia. Alexei was running along the shore, laughing as the waves chased his feet. His voice carried on the wind, telling stories about the shells he found, about the fish he saw, about everything his beautiful mind could imagine. Dante stood next to me, his arm around my waist, his face peaceful in a way I had never seen before. The scars were still there on his body and in his heart, but they were getting better. We were all happy. "You happy?" he asked. I leaned into him, watching our boy play in the water. "Incredibly." "Marry me." I turned to look at him. "What?" He smiled. That rare, real smile that made his whole face light up. "Marry me, Sarah. Make this real. Make us official. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated, but I don't want to wait any longer to call you my wife." "Yes," I said right away. "Yes, absolutely. Yes." He kissed me as the sun went down over the Adriatic Sea, as Alexis's laughter filled the air, as our future stretched out in front of us, uncertain but hopeful, scarred but whole. We had survived the darkness.